I think some of those moments takes, I call it, you're too stupid to give up. Every brand is yesterday's spammer. It's got to be win-win. I don't like win-lose. You become the limiting factor of the company's growth. You are. I'm going to tell you what the blackest place in the world is. Right next to the spotlight.
This episode is brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for businesses. If you have ever wanted to grow your business faster than what you can right now, if you need to make more revenue, if you need more leads, if you need more clients, if you need to know how to plan your business in a strategic way in order to hit big goals, if you need to learn how to scale your business and grow your team and your business so that you have more freedom, then this program is for you. Imagine 3 days immersed with me where we cover all aspects of business, but we do it from an immersive but also an execution standpoint. We execute every step of the way, and we're looking at 5 key areas. We're looking at your psychology, we're looking at your marketing, your sales, your leadership, and we're looking at your planning and how we integrate these 5 key areas to grow your business and your brand quickly. So if you'd like to find out more information, kerwinray.com. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to Unstoppable, Fred Schebesta. Now, did I get that right?
Yeah, like the best star.
Yeah, the best. I should have asked you that before I actually did your intro, mate. I got to say, Fred, when the guys when they put you in front of me, I have to say I was actually really stoked because I didn't know much about you until you came across my desk, but I knew a lot about your business, and your business is one that I found really interesting in the way that it's come out, the way it's been quite ingeniously done, where you're leveraging off, in many respects, the products of other people and becoming almost like a network platform yourself. But for those people who don't know you, because from what I can tell, you are quite out there, but there might be some people who don't know your rap sheet. So what's the download when someone says to you at a dinner party, so what do you do, Fred? Like, how do you answer that question?
It's been a process actually, of continuous self-discovery and reinvention to describe myself. I think I used to be a website builder, and then I was a marketer, and then sort of an internet entrepreneur. And these days, I sort of see myself as a creator. So I've taken the role of creative director, chief creative officer at Finder, which is, it's sort of strange in one way, but I just tend to get involved with building stuff, taking something from 0 to 1. And I've constantly always done that. We started Finder just in my kitchen table. Frank and I just, every sort of night we'd just, add a bit here and there, and then continuously innovate it and adapt it. And then eventually we're like, wow, this is a real business. And Frank's really like the CEO. He knows how to make the processes and the people and the management and the leadership and the financials and the money and, those kind of things. And I understand those things as well. It's just not my best strength. But I can do all of those elements. I just, in the beginning, I'm really good at incepting the start, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes complete sense. And mate, you've got a bit of a track record. I know you have your first business was Freestyle Media, which you sold with Frank for about 1.36, and then you went on with Frank to co-found Finder, which I think based on the last valuation is close to about $250 million in terms of valuation, maybe more now, I'm not sure. So I'm going to assume in order to go through that, and also being an internet marketer, and I'm looking at this going, holy shit, how come I actually didn't find out about you sooner? Because you were, from what I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong here, my sense is you're a bit of a gangster marketer. You're a little bit of a above the line, below the line. You seem to have a bit of an understanding about conversion optimization, traffic generation, lead generation, the funnel process, which for a company of that size is actually quite unusual, especially with, in the tech space. Although a lot of companies are good with the tech, they may not necessarily be good with the funnels and the marketing side. So I'm curious, where did this all fucking begin, mate? Like, where does your life begin in terms of the story of, your life, your book? Where does it start, mate?
Where
did you grow up?
I grew up in a little house in Turramurra, which is in the North Shore of Sydney, and I used to ride skateboards and climb trees and ride BMX bikes and eat Redskins for 5 cents. I was that kind of kid.
Redskins.
And I used to be a very outdoors guy, and little kid, and I was very curious all the time. I'd inspect and understand and learn things. And one time my father bought a computer, and back in the 80s, computers were, a personal computer wasn't really a thing, and he bought a Micro B from Dick Smith when Dick Smith was, quite cutting edge. And this had a color screen and it had a modem that connected to bulletin boards. And I didn't really understand exactly what was going on with all the
What year was
technology
this?
and stuff. This is probably like 89, 89.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're going
How old are you,
way
bro?
back. 8 years old, maybe
Okay.
max.
Okay.
And so I was very sporty. I we used to call it coffin because we used to go down the steepest road and lie down and go as fast as possible back then. And I just used to do wild stuff like that. I was a bit of a rebel kid. But then I got it. My dad showed me this computer, and I was just fascinated by it. I was like, I sort of unpacked it and I edited it, and I would just tear it apart. And I broke many computers. And my dad would always complain about it, and I got viruses on there, and I'd fix them. And I played a lot of computer games as well. And I used to network computers together back in the day when we used to do cables, and that taught me about how two computers can talk to each other, and that's really what the internet is, right? The internet is just computers talking to each other. It's the exact same thing. It's just done over a phone line. And when the internet started becoming bigger, I looked at the internet and I was like, what is this internet thing? And I used to look at the source code of web pages and try and replicate them, just like I did when I was,
Yeah.
8 years old. And I just started building websites. And I sent on a website to one of my friends. I said, hey, I built this website. I put his name on there and a photo of him, and he lost it. He was like, man, this is the future. And I was like, yeah, it is the future. This is where we need to get into. And so that's what we deep dive down. And he actually was one of the founders of the first company, Adam. But he left, and I sort of continued on down that path. And it was a learning thing. I didn't know how to run a business. I was at college, and I was building
So what, you're
websites
just
and
pumping
selling
out
them.
websites?
Yeah, yeah.
So this is back in what year is this now?
This is like '01.
Okay.
Yeah, like '01, 2000, 2001. I was just hacking up. We had dial-up modems, and we used to send web pages to each other. It was wild. And I think it's the curiosity and that passion just to create something and show other people. I always love to do that. Um, and I think that's what the genesis of a lot of those things are. I just go on, I was reading Jeff Bezos's shareholder letter, his 2018 one, and he talked about, um, Amazon goes on these, a lot of businesses, you go on these trips of wandering, you wander, and you don't know where the innovation is. You're trying to solve it for the customer to solve this problem, but you don't exactly know. Sometimes you do know, and there are business problems, you can be really efficient, but there are other ones where you just wander and you test things and you try things. I think that's what I do. I wander and build, and I put my own money up and I just try things. I've done so many wacky things. When we started Finder, we actually had 4 other websites. So we had a poker site, we had a Mother's Day presents site, we had a Sudoku site, we had a Christmas Day site, we had anzacday.com.au actually. And the two when we launched it, all the 2GB people called us up and hassled us and somehow got on there. Actually, I was on a show with Alan Jones and this story came up the other day. Alan and I are good friends. He's a funny guy. Anyway, he basically, he didn't remember it, but yeah, everyone got really angry and we just handed over the website. But it was just an experiment, right? It was Anzac Day and everyone's buying memorabilia, so we thought, hey, why don't we sell it?
Yeah,
I didn't go
right.
down to it. A lot of wacky experiments,
Okay.
failed experiments.
And so was this
Um,
website business? Was this Freestyle Media?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And the
And so
side business we called Freestyle e-business. And we just,
right.
we used to build sites for people. And one day, one of my clients, I used to, one of those key questions, I think everyone, in the beginning of any business is, if you need to get more business, just go and ask your customer, what do they want? So I called up one of our clients because I was building these websites and I was done. I was like, oh, I need some more revenue. And I called one up and I said, hey, what else can I do for you? What else do you need? And he said, well, I've got this website and that was great. Good job, Fred. But now I need more traffic. And I was like, traffic. Okay, you need traffic? He says, yeah, and there's this thing called Google. and it's picking up steam. This is 2001, right?
Yeah, right.
This is like early days. This would have been about 2002 when this started really quick. And I left uni and I had rent in an office. I don't know how I possibly went and did these ideas. Now looking back on it, and I was like, okay, I'll get you to the top of Google, no worries. And so I went and researched it and figured it out, and I got him to the top of Google, and he crushed it so hard. No one else knew how to do this in his industry, and it was just making printing money. And I was getting paid 300, 400 bucks a month, and I was super happy. I was like, yes, I got some revenue, but then I thought, well, if we can build this site, then we can do this marketing. Why don't we try and do our own ones? And that's when we put the Sudoku site. One of them was creditcardfinder.com.au. And
Is that was the genesis of Finder?
Yeah, so I'll tell you the story behind that.
Please.
So back in 2006, websites that had keywords in them used to rank in their domain name, used to rank really highly in Google. And there's still a little element of it today, but not as much. And so I was like, okay, I want to make a credit card site because I wanted to make a challenge. I was like, I want to rank number one for credit card in Google. Now that's a challenge. That's real hard, And all these banks were there, and I was like, I can outrank them. I just got to figure out how. So I started off, and I said, okay. I downloaded every single keyword there was that for credit card. It was credit card, credit cards, credit card comparison, best credit cards, and the sixth one was credit card finder. And it was like I typed them all into Google because that was the most top ranked by number of searches. And I was like, okay, credit card finder, and it was available. And I was like, all right, that one's it. That's the brand name. And I just registered it. I registered home loan finder and personal loan finder and all these kind of things. And, we just started small, started writing guides about, we wrote the first no annual fee credit card guide in Australia, which is,
so how did you formulate the commercial model in the early days? Did you really look at yourself and go, okay, the money here is really in the affiliate play? Like, how did you come together and produce the commercialization of what you did?
I was fascinated by affiliate marketing because it allowed us to sort of digitize a lot of the manual things that we were doing. And in 2007, I won the Young Direct Marketer of the Year, ADMA, and they gave me a trip. The prize was a trip to Chicago. Actually, I don't know if people know this story. And I went to Chicago, and I go into the DMA, which is the Direct Marketing Association event. And I went to the workshops, and I was so tired. I'd never been to America, and I went by myself, and I was so tired. And I was walking around Chicago late at night. Little did I know it was one of the most dangerous areas, and all these people used to come up to me and hassle me. And I was like, man, why are you talking to me? And I'd just go and get a burger and walk around. I don't know. That was innocent, young, 25-year-old. And I went to one of these workshops, and there was a guy, and he talked about this idea called persuasion architecture. And I'd never heard those two words put together before. And he had a book, and I was fascinated by this guy. And he talked about clients and how you can influence someone to purchase on a website by profiling them and understanding what they want, and then creating structure in the website to get people to buy and to solve what you actually have to sell. Like what they're trying to buy is what you're going to actually give them, because people don't realize, right? Because websites are basically digital salespeople. They're just built with technology. And that was a very profound idea for me, and it affected me a lot. And it sort of taught me about listening to the customer and going way further than I'd ever imagined. The Americans are so cutting edge by that.
Did that give birth to like dynamic marketing campaigns whereby you were actually, customizing from the ad through to the landing page through to what the rest of that funnel specifically for those keywords and those search terms? I remember when that came out on Google, where you had the ability to have the dynamic ads, integrating with the dynamic features of the web pages.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was definitely. I was never great at the I didn't really get into too much digital ads. I could
Okay.
write the creative. Frank used
It
to
was more
buy
the
the
search
ads.
side.
Yeah, Frank bought the ads, and I did the creative for the ads and the copy, and
Yeah, right.
he did the buying and the selling part, the trading part, because he's very analytical like that. He's really I can be analytical, and I can sort of use two of those sides.
Your
But
genius
he's
and your
really,
creative.
yeah. I do the creative, and then he'd do the analytical, and I think that's where SEO, that's really why it's quite interesting, because it's technology, right? So you're using that rational side and the code, and then you have to be creative on the words and the interpretation and understanding of the customer. And I think that's why, yeah. And I have this theory that, Finder was really born out of the mastery of me building websites and the passion for search engine optimization. I spent 7 years mastering those skills, building websites for people. Frank and I were earning like $1,500 a month. We started with nothing, and purely, I think, just the passion of learning about these technologies. Then we actually got a chance to actually put them in motion. And that's and I still think we're just begun. We've only just begun. Finder's just started. I think.
And how have you guys been affected with everything that's going on right now with COVID-19?
Wild, wild. Yeah. So we've been, it's, we had this strategy I sort of put in place a long time ago, where I wanted Finder to be the most comprehensive comparison site, and it compared more things than anyone else. So there's shopping deals on Finder, and there's, broadband, there's VPNs, there's streaming comparison, all sorts of things, as opposed to just credit products. And credit products are obviously a big revenue earner, and that's taken, quite a hit. Everyone has applied for, credit, and also for loan extensions. And so we've really pivoted to our other verticals, which is lucky, because we put those investments in ages ago, and they weren't as big, but now they are massive. People are, our website's never seen so much traffic before.
Is that
And
right?
in our
Where are you
US
seeing the
business,
growth?
online shopping, share trading is very interesting. People are getting into the stock market. Broadband, everyone hates their broadband right now, including myself. Um, 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 people are canceling Netflix right now, which is really weird,
That is weird. Yeah.
because they're bored with it. They want something new. They need a new. That one confused me.
What's
People are
what's
buying.
the cancellation rate? Like, it sounds like you've seen a piece of data I haven't seen yet with Netflix. What's going on there?
Oh, just a very popular page on our website right now. How to cancel Netflix. I couldn't tell you the
Really?
exact numbers, but yeah, and Disney Plus is just crushing it right now.
They are. They're doing so well. What an incredible strategy they've launched with.
Um,
And so your pivot now is really moving into those other verticals that you've been setting up now in the last few years.
yeah, we always had them there. They were just small, and now they've just ballooned. Our UK business, which competes with, four of the biggest comparison sites, didn't really get a lot of, like, it had a little bit of cut through, and it takes a lot of time with those other verticals, but it had a lot of cut through in other categories, and and those ones are just dominating. So it's really interesting. It's kind of like we were up against big giants, but then the market moved, like the dice just got reshuffled, and the cards got relaid out, and I see it like, to me, COVID-19 is like the tectonic plates just got moved a bit,
Mm.
and the map got changed. And now you need to reform your strategy. And that's what, for us, I think, we always had that strategy in place, and it kind of, we just needed something to click. And that was what clicked. It was just, simple twist of fate. No, I don't think you can, I wouldn't say we were genius in working that out. I put that down to a little bit of luck. But
A little bit of luck.
you worked pretty hard to get to that piece of luck, if you know what I mean.
Exactly, but I'm going to assume this isn't the first time that you guys have experienced some turbulence. You've this is your second business that you've built, over $1 million. First one was 1.3 that you sold for. This one, as I said, is valued now over almost close to $250 million, or sorry, 193 million. I know you're valued at, sorry, mate, my numbers are all over the place here. So 246 million is the current valuation. Your valuation's nice and healthy as well. but you don't get to those kind of numbers without experiencing, significant levels of either, failure or stress or everything times 100 that's combined in that sentence. So what have been the moments for you where, you've really questioned not just your desire to be in business, but whether or not you should be doing, business at all?
I think this one's been pretty tough, but there's another one I remember two really, really tough ones. The first one I remember was when Frank and we had a court case. I'm at a dumb young era where I copied some code, and well, it turned out it was open source code. Anyway, the court case got settled and it cost us a lot of money. We didn't have much money back then in freestyle media. And we had a tax bill of $250,000. We were just having we just made all the mistakes you could possibly make. And I remember sitting out in the back car park with Frank, and yeah, I was just crying. I had nothing left. I was like, I think you can't get hit in any other more directions. And the tax man's pretty punchy when you owe them money, so we're pretty scared. And we were living on the edge as well, like personally, like very depressed in a really rough way. And I remember I turned to Frank and I said, maybe we should just call it in. That's, we're just not cut out for this. And we're sitting there and it's like, yeah, that's probably right. And I was sitting there and I was like, nah. What's the difference between us and someone else? They're just people. We can do this. Other people are dominating. Why can't we do this? We can figure this out. Nah. We just fired up, went back in, cut some costs, hustled harder, doubled our efforts, just turned the ship around. And, we dug ourselves out of that hole. I mortgaged my shares. I got a margin loan, 15% interest, chucked that into the cash into the company, made the payroll, and just rode it all the way. And we just, cut down costs and just fired all the way back up, got the company profitable, and it just shot up, out of it. We got some big clients. It just turned the corner. I don't know. We just hung in longer than, I think some of those moments I call it, you're too stupid to give up. I think I was just too young and dumb to give up, but probably wasn't the best idea. Although we sold the companies soon after, so that was kind of key. Good timing. The second time I reckon was really brutal was when we got penalized by Google with Credit Card Finder, and what that means is we got put into Google jail.
Ooh.
So you get, not good. So we got sent back like 20 places in Google, and we lost 80% of our traffic overnight. Had it for 3 months. We dug ourselves out, and that was emotionally just, I think it was like where something so beautiful and so prosperous gets absolutely taken away from you and smashed. Yeah, it doesn't feel so good. It takes a while to get over that.
What did you learn from that experience? Because I think a lot of us have had that experience with some form of a Google slap or a Facebook slap, and it does often kind of signal the dependence that we sometimes live with some of the partners that we align. What was the big lesson for you out of that from a contingency perspective? Because going from where you were to being knocked back 20 places or 20 pages, 80% of your revenue overnight, 80% of your traffic overnight gone, I know what that's going to do. What contingencies did you learn from that you then use to diversify your traffic strategies moving forward?
Yeah, so we definitely diversified. Yeah, like you said, sources. We bought a ninja sword actually at the time, and it's inscribed. It actually sits on our reception hallway. I haven't been to our office in like, I don't know, it's going on 4 weeks now. But back there, we bought this sword to remind us about how our marketing tactics can cut us as well if we treat them without respect.
Ooh.
And this is a real ninja sword. So we cleaned up our act in our SEO, and we went pure white hat. The whitest, like, I'm wearing a black hat right now, but
the irony, I love it.
every brand is yesterday's spammer. In some
Mm.
way, they spammed some channel
Mm.
or they did something. MySpace was an email spammer. Airbnb spammed Craigslist. Everyone did it to get themselves an edge, right? And I think,
Mm.
and then you turn the corner and you go, okay, that's enough. Now we're going to build a real business.
Mm. And so, what drives you, Fred?
I it's interesting. I've been going. I got an emotional coach, and I keep going on these journeys right now about figuring out my purpose and why am I doing this. And
Mm.
I sort of got real good clarity right now around. I love to build things. I just love it. I love to build things and then win. Simple as that. Um,
What does win mean to you? Like, how do you know if you've won?
if there's an opportunity and we go through the journey and we create something and people get a lot of value from it, and then we earn some revenue from that, and everyone's happy and everyone gets their win as well. As long as
Mm.
everyone gets their win, that's a win to me. It's got to be win-win. I don't like win-lose. I like
Yeah,
win-win.
no, I like that. But you like to build things specifically in order for people to win. And so, mate, when you do things, like what are the things that when you do them, you lose time and space, or the things that you think about effortlessly or fantasize about, or just are consumed by in terms of obsession or reading? Like, where are the things that, if you look out throughout your entire life, what has that pattern been around?
I think it's about formulating long, medium, and short-term strategies that come together and create something that lasts. And I think the word is, if you're going to sum it together, is to create a legacy. You know,
Mm.
I like to do things so that people remember it. You know, if I'm going to tell you what the blackest place in the world is, right next to the spotlight,
Mm.
dark as. I hate that. And you've got to earn that place in the spotlight. And I love the payment. I love the journey to get there. I think everything. Even from like little parties. Frank and I ran this big party called Australia Party. And we had a house and we built a website and we got sponsors. We had like, I don't know, 300 people through the place. Put 5 tons of sand in our backyard, and we were renting the place. It was a wild story. And people still talk about that party because I remember we sat there and we were like, okay, we're gonna have this party. And this is the philosophy all the time when I think of ideas and we're focused on things. It's like, okay, we're gonna have a party. Cool. Yeah, we got DJ, we got booze, we got food, we got fun. Everything's gonna pump. It's good. And I said, but why are people gonna talk about it? Why will it be remarkable? In other words, remarkable is, why will I remark to someone else about it? And I said, well, it's Australia. Like, I said to Frank, I remember we're sitting on the floor because we didn't have chairs, and we were kicking around this idea. This is in our house. We used to live together as well, 2.5 years. We ran it like an Airbnb, by the way, before there was Airbnb, before there were hashtags, and before there were smartphones. Anyway, it's a whole other story. We're sitting there and we're like, what are people like going to go? What is insane? We're like, okay, animals. Nah. What's Australia all about? The beach. Yeah, let's make the beach. Yeah, beaches are all. How are we gonna make a beach? Well, water's tough. Let's get some sand. Sand. So I called up a sand company. Got them to dump 5 tons of sand on the North Sydney street. Literally shipped it in. Our mates and I literally on with uh, spades,
Wheelbarrows.
bags, wheelbarrows, anything it took, filled the backyard, right? And people still talk about this party. This party that's the level, right? That's the
Yeah.
level. And that's the level I want Finder to go to. I want it to be a great Australian tech company that people go, that's a great company. That's a great Australian tech company. That's amazing. It's taken it to the world. Obviously we market to the US and the UK, and we have offices there. Right now our New York office is obviously very empty because it's pretty wild. Um, you know, and I think the connecting theme is I always try and do something unique, different, and then people talk about it afterwards. And if it doesn't hit that level, then I'm uninterested and I don't engage, and I
It
move
almost
on.
sounds like your purpose is around, creating memorable experiences for people in many ways. Whether that's through a credit card or, a party or, learning how to, cancel a Netflix subscription. But there's one aspect of your life that I am a little bit curious about, and I'm going to pin off something from before. Like you said, a really good statement before, great quote. I haven't heard in probably over a decade. The darkest place is right beside the darkest point is beside the spotlight. And I know for myself, as I went through the process of building a business, I'm later in life, I met a woman, got married, had a child, and that became its own kind of, project in many ways. I know you're a father, you got two beautiful girls. I'm curious to know from your perspective, like how's it been on the relationship side, as an entrepreneur, but also as someone who, because there's entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, and I don't mean that with any disrespect, but there are a lot of people that, that put a badge on their hat that say they're an entrepreneur, but they're really just, someone who's self-employed. You've built a significant business, you've built a significant net worth. I'm curious to know how you've managed the relationship side, whilst being able to balance both of those things out.
So I think that I got married when I was 28. I sold my first company when I was 26. So that's pretty young. Oh no, I think I got married when I was 27 and I had my first child when I was 28. I had Porsche. And I didn't have the child, actually. I supported, I couldn't say I claimed having the child. That's, anyway, that's a whole other topic. I have so much respect for, pregnancy, what women do. It's incredible.
It's incredible.
It's a miracle, absolute miracle. And wow. And I actually got, I got divorced in 2005. And I think, I married, I guess I would say my best friend, I guess girlfriend, and she was my third client in my first business. And, her, and I was very, I think what I wanted to share with that, is a lot of, I think what you're also getting to is with entrepreneurs is because you're so dedicated to something, you don't spend much time actually emotionally growing up. And I think when I was 30, that maybe 5 years ago, I was 34. I started seeing an emotional coach, and I walked in and I said, I don't need no, I was like, something's weird. I kept on making the same mistake, and I was like, it's weird. And I went and spoke to him, and he was like, yeah. And then we dug deeper, and then I realized, and we started working on this, and I just dramatically improved. And I actually have a really good relationship with my ex-wife. She's great. We go traveling together. We actually, my current partner and my ex-wife and my two little girls, we all went traveling together over the Christmas. And we had a great time, and my ex-wife came around for dinner the other night. Like here's a funny story, quick story to probably illustrate it the best. We're playing Pictionary last night, and my eldest daughter, she had the word, she drew two people in a house, then she drew two people in two separate houses. She goes, huh? And I said, separate, divorce. She's like, yeah, that's the word. And I said, why are they smiling afterwards? She goes, because they're friends.
Oh man, well done. Good job.
So I think I did the emotional work, and I grew up from a young, I'd say like a teenager in a 30-year-old's body to a much more. Now I'm still working on it, right? Like I'm still working on it. Always working on myself. So I'm not the perfect guy. I lose it every now and then, but relatively, I've done a lot of work to get myself into a really cool place. I feel very calm around with my ex-wife. I gave her, split with her all the money that she needed, gave her the house, everything, didn't take anything, except for my grandmother's carpet. That was just a small thing. Just one thing. because my grandmother passed away during the divorce, so that was another
Oh man, I'm sorry
that
to hear
that
that.
was it was a very tough time. Going through a divorce, moving house, like, you know, and my grandmother died. Anyway, that was a pretty dark time. Um, and I think all throughout my this my life, I've had a lot of dark times where I sort of reinvent myself. I go through these cycles, these weird fractals, and I go down and I come back up, and I go down and I come back up. Big waves, massive waves. And I think what I was trying to, what I could probably share the most there is there are many self-limiting beliefs that people say, you say to yourself. I can only talk for myself. Other people probably maybe don't have this experience, but I've noticed it in other people. But I'll just share from my personal experience that you tell yourself. And I think the moment in time where it really struck me was if you listen to some of the language that you tell yourself and imagine instead you use that same language and spoke to your child in the same way,
Mm.
the dissonance there, Kerwin, is massive, right? And like when a child's learning to walk, oh, they fall over. Hey, come on, get up. Those kind of things. We just say to them, what the hell are you falling over for? You should be better than that. You're not good enough. You're not worthy of this. Blah, blah. All of these dialogues, right? And it took me a long time to unpack some of these. A lot of tears, dark, just really confronting stuff that I say to myself. And now the language I use to myself is a very, when you change that corner and you start being positive and not even necessarily positive, just neutral at least, sometimes positive. And sometimes, you did something wrong and you need to go and clean it up. I think my relationships have improved so much. And, I got to give context as well. I've worked with Frank for 17 years.
Mm.
That's longer than I was married. That's a long time. And I've cleaned up so many things over the years with him, continuously cleaned and cleaned. And now I feel even other stuff I've dug back through but that's a very long relationship. That's a long
Mm.
marriage. Um, and, Jeremy, who's one of the co-founders at Finder, he started very early in the early days as well. We've had our things we've gone through and come back. I don't think if I didn't do that work, I'd be able to have the conversations that I have. And it's, it, let me give you another moment in time, Karen. This is it, is when something happens or you're in a situation and someone says something and then you react, you don't respond. So, and those moments when you feel something and you blurt it out and you're like, oh, those are normally the things that I've gone back and had to clean up. And not only the moment in time, but now I've unpacked a lot of the beliefs and dialogue I've had upon myself. And then so when it happens again, I'm like, I feel calm and I don't react, I respond.
Mm.
And what happened? So maybe I think this is something you said just before, and I want to come back to it. With a lot of entrepreneurs, um, I think one of the moments and the hardest moment in time for an entrepreneur when you start a company is the moment when the company is bigger than you. And for it to enable it to go to be bigger than yourself, because the Finder is bigger than me. There's 300 people. I genuinely don't know everyone anymore. They're in 5 different countries in different offices. I only just went to our Poland office, this year. I just couldn't go. It's physically not possible to go to all the places continuously. But to allow that to happen, I believe that the difference and the moment in difference that allowed it to happen was where I stopped controlling the company and having to have control of it, where I needed control. And then if I didn't need control, I'd throw my pots and pans and I'd, cause a ruckus. And, you're basically breaking down all these relationships you've built, and you say things because you need control. You need control. And that's that confrontation, that moment when if you can get past that, that's when a company, I think, is allowed to grow past the size of the founder. You become the limiting factor of the company's growth. You are. And that's a really confronting moment in time. And I don't think I dealt with that terribly well for a lot of years. And then I started to calm down and be different. And, and I'm not perfect. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not perfect. But I think that was the moment where it's not just me. It's not about me. It became about the company.
It sounds like you've done a lot of work, mate. And I'm curious to know, at what point in your life, is there a moment where something happened, either in the business or your personal life, where you went, fuck, okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm blowing fucking shit up on a regular, and there's a theme here. The theme is me. Was there that moment where something happened and you just went, right, okay, I need to do some work? And first of all, what was that moment? And secondly, for people who are listening to this who might be in a similar spot, like, where did you start?
I remember it, and it wasn't. I kept on. I kept on. It's just hard to talk about, but I'll be vulnerable. I had after I separated from my ex-wife, I was let's say, how can I say this? I just wasn't a very good in relationships with my well, not partners, but the girls I was going out with. I was a terrible. I don't know. My fidelity was terrible. I would just I would just break it, and I was like, it would continuously happen, and I'm like, well, there's only one person that was in charge of this, and that's you, Fred. And the pattern was vicious, and I realized, it took me a long time to realize this, but I was self-sabotaging because I didn't think I was worthy of a good relationship, and so I would actively go and break it. And so that idea is bigger than that, but where you don't think you're worthy of anything.
I get it. Yeah.
Terrible, right? Terrible. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, oh my goodness. And I said, well, if something wrong, I'm going to go and see someone because I can't control this. This doesn't make any sense. Something's not right. Like the computer chips keep coming out with this error and it's consistent. That's the thing. I saw the pattern. I was like, that's consistently happening. That's not good enough. All right. So I randomly met this guy. This other girl referred me to, said, entrepreneurs speak to this guy all the time. I'm like, okay. And I totally challenged him, and I was so anti him at the first meeting until he just pushed on one of he could just see into my soul, basically into my emotional state. And he just pushed a little bit on one sore point, and I lost it. Just lost it. Just completely. He goes, yeah. And he'll just sit and he'd just be very quiet and calm and let me cry it out, or, just be really angry or whatever it was. Not even really angry, just crying it out. He just hammer me on sore points where I was weak and I wasn't. And he said, Fred, my goal with you is to take you from, this blubbery mess, obese, this obese guy who's walking to the gym for the first time to, like a James Bond when it comes to your emotions. And he asked me, he said, how committed to you are this? How committed on something like this are you? And I'm, pretty wrecked, right, during this 1 hour. And I said, I'm ready to go all the way down the rabbit hole as far as it needs to go. And I committed that to him, and I was genuine about it, right? I want to discover myself. And that's the difference. That's what changed. Like you're like, oh, I know a bit about myself.
Yeah, but there's a difference. There's knowing yourself, and then there's knowing.
Deep,
yeah,
right into the sore places where it hurts and it's uncomfortable, and then I started having real conversations with people. I started having really confronting conversations, really just terrible ones that you have to just stand up and go, I think this, and people go, and then when it actually happens, people go, well, actually, he's just being authentic and genuine, and that's fine. And it's like, wow, that felt really good, and I was really scared of that. And I started building that muscle. I think there are 3 types of gyms. There's mental gym, physical gym, and an emotional gym. And I think that emotional gym is what I missed for a long, long time. But that was the trigger. It's hard for me to speak about, but I'm just being vulnerable.
I appreciate it. Like, there's also a lot of, myself included, I speak to a lot of people who've built some incredible companies. there seems to be a resurgent now in a way that people look for creative ideas and even, treat their own issues and do their own work. Something that's created a significant resurgence in the last, 7-8 years as a result of people like Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan is the psychedelic movement. And it's interesting because I'm a big fan, I'm a big proponent of plant medicine. But when I actually started doing the research, I started to discover the significance of Palo Alto as a research center in the early 60s, of where a lot of LSD research was actually conducted. And obviously there was the revolution that started, or not the revolution, but the free love movement that started in San Francisco. And then ultimately we now hear stories about people in tech companies that are bringing in shamans, that are bringing in people for microdosing, that are, really playing with different ways to access not just creativity, but also performance. And look, I'm just putting it out there, but as someone who myself, who was, endeavored and journeyed for therapeutic purposes, as well as performance purposes, I'm curious if that's made a show in your life at this point.
I have looked into it. I've never got into psychedelics. I've never taken psychedelics because personally, I find it hard. I'm a very creative person, and so I can't watch. So let me give you the level. I can't watch paranormal movies because I won't sleep. I can construct and creatively connect the dots to believe that it's actually real. And it takes me a few days to get over it, right?
Yeah.
I just go so far down and when I watch a movie, I don't care about the characters. I'm actually the concept. I want the concepts and I want to put them in. I call them loading them into my tape, right? My tape it's like a remix tape, like a mixtape that's constantly being remixed, and I'm mixing it in and I'm, listen to the tunes now. I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to put a little bit of that, a little bit. Anyway, I think everything's a remix, right? I don't think there are any original ideas. I think there is, and so everything I find there is a remix of, a newspaper combined with a personal finance magazine, and put a mortgage broker on top. It's not really. I didn't invent that idea. That's the whole of ideas combined together. I just remixed them. I think that's just me personally. I'm very. I get affected by those chemicals a lot, and so just that's not no harm, no foul about those kind of things. I am fascinated by this world, and the only reason I'd be fascinated by it is purely because I'd want to know. I always love watching, movies or TV series that have a different world. I can't remember what the word is.
Dimension.
Yeah, a different dimension, like Altered Carbon, where all the things have been reshuffled. And so that would be my, I want, the reason why I love those movies is because then you actually get perspective. You go, oh, our world's like this, but it's different like that. Oh, that's actually a thing in our world. Let's go and study that. And then I'll go and study that aspect of that current world and try and understand it more. Cause I'm like, that's actually something it's permanent. When you see two different worlds and the other, what is there and what is not there is quite fascinating to me, and what is permanent, what is not. And so I'm, and that would be one of the reasons why I would like to. I probably need to do it in a controlled environment or something like that, just because I'm just very sensitive.
For anyone who's listening, with any of the work that I do, it's always done in a controlled environment and with an enormous amount of education. But mate, if you're interested, there's a great book I can recommend, especially on the therapeutic side. Again, my interest in plant medicine is really on the therapeutic, the entheogenic, as well as performance, because there are performance benefits as well. Great book if you're interested. It's called the Psychedelic Explorer's Guide by James Fadiman, and which is a compilation of hundreds of different articles and research papers from universities all over the world, as well as a little bit of historical account of how these incredible medicines have been used and how they're making a resurgence, but more importantly, why they're making a resurgence, especially in the area of mental health, depression, anxiety, treatment resistant, in some cases, genetic depression, treatment resistant PTSD. It's really quite fascinating. But I know you're just a dude with an open mind, so I thought I'd just throw that one out there and see if anything landed.
Oh, I'm always interested. I would love to talk after this about that. I would love to.
Mate, I'm more than happy to. Parenting, mate. Parenting as an entrepreneur at your level, like what are some of the lessons that you've learned about being a parent and how they cross over between work and parent and work?
I don't give my girls pocket money, and I never will.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to teach them to trade time for money. Um, they know they can ask for whatever they want, whatever, however much money they want, but they have to go. And so I'll tell you a story. They have to justify it, right? So we were in a Lego store in New York, right? We rolled in, we just rolled in, and they do it so well in merchandise. Americans are great like that. And they said, "Can we get some Lego?" I said, "Of course you can, but you need to give me 5 reasons why you want this Lego, and 3 reasons what you're going to learn from it." They were like, "Dad, come on, how about 4?" I'm like, 5 it is for this one, 5. They're like, "Fine, 5 it is." And they go, "Do we have to?" "Yeah, come on. All right, fine." So they said, "Oh, I need it written and I need it presented to me." And so they took their time and then they started writing it down. And she was quite young, she could barely write, but she'd draw little things and as much of the word as she could get out. And the king presented it back to me, and I said, "This is not a reason, I said, "You got to present it as well. So you got to sales pitch it to me. You got to sell me on why, and I'm then going to venture back your venture on your Lego venture." And they were like, and then I said, "This reason is not good enough. Doesn't make sense. It's the same as that one." They're like, "Fine." And they went back and they redid it, reworked it. Eventually came back and I said, "Fine, that's it." So they went around, "You get whatever you want." They bought like $200 worth of Lego, right? It was pretty punchy, right? But when we talk about Lego now, and we talk back to that story, they know for a fact if we're going to talk about something, getting something, they're going to start number one negotiating with me on the number of reasons, but they're going to pitch me real hard as to the justifications and why. And that's with everything, right? You're gonna, I think I went up to like Saatchi when I want to get, I don't know, something like a cat. I'll say a cat. Okay. Now, we're going to need some serious reasons on this. And 2, I need another presentation on how you're going to take care of this when we're away. So, but what's the principle there, right? I don't want them to trade time for money, right? And I want them to know that anything's possible. It just takes enough convincing, enough rational argument. I want them to learn to pitch, present, document their ideas, and sell. I think selling is a core skill. So the girls will negotiate on me so hard on everything, which is great. And I want them to, and a little people, could see it as fighting, but it's not a fight. It's like they know there's eventually a place where we'll come to some terms because we've practiced this over time. And the other thing I want them to ask for is to ask for what they want in their life, to request it. And so when we go to a restaurant now, if Portia's sitting there, she used to ask me, "I want ketchup." She doesn't ask for ketchup. She stands up, goes and finds the waiter and says, "Excuse me, I would like some ketchup." And so the lady's like, "Okay, yes." And and she's, "And I don't want any pickles on my bun, please." I'm like, "Good, excellent, asking what you want from the world." Because if you've got to ask, I think, I think that's core. I would say with the girl's mum versus I'm much more laissez-faire, but they know, and the extreme of it was one day I tried no rules. So we went to Singapore and I said, "All right, we're going to try something for this holiday. There's been no rules, but you will experience all the consequences of your decisions. There are no rules."
Oh, I like that.
And I said, "But every single consequence is yours." And they said, "Okay." And no rules. And they're like, "Dad," they walked up to me, "Dad, can I eat this chocolate?" I'm like, "It's up to you. Obviously, when we're going to eat lunch, and the consequence of eating that chocolate's up to you." They ate the chocolate. They were running around. They had plenty of energy. They were fine. They're like, "Well, fine." They'll eat it in front of me. I was like, I ain't gonna just, I ain't gonna, break my word. That's the thing. You don't break your word. If I've committed to something, then that's it. I want them to know that's a contract. And so, we went out and I said, "Hey, I just want to suggest it's a little bit cold. You might want to bring a jumper, but it's up to you. There are no rules here." And they were like, well, there's no rules, Dad. I'm going to wear whatever I want. And then we went out. And in this case, it turned out it was actually warmer than I expected. And they said, well, it was a good thing, Dad, I didn't bring a jumper because it's very hot. Look, you're carrying your jumper now. And I was like, that's true. I'm experiencing the consequence of my decision. So, both ways. It's got to be. I'm not always right, but um, that was a pretty out there experiment. That's probably the extreme of. I guess I'm trying to think about my philosophy with
How did that
parenting.
roll? How did that roll out? Like, what was the outcome there? Did it work?
Yeah, I'd say it worked out. They actually went pretty aggressive. Then they pulled back, and I said, oh, so, no, there was no rules except, I think I said, don't get pregnant and no drugs and alcohol. And they were like, what are drugs, Dad? I was like, oh, okay. But they were pretty good with it. They were like, yeah, that's fine, Dad, fine, okay. But otherwise, all the rest, that's fine. They weren't really into that, so you could probably go no rules. So at the time, I didn't. I just thought this is something. I think rules are tough, and figuring out where they lie. I think for example, another one is screen time. I think people are big on screen, not big on screen time or big on screen time. I'm big on screen time. I let, my girls, they've got computers, they've got iPads, and they do have certain amounts. I'm like, hey guys, you watch a lot of YouTube, do something constructive. So they'll play a game, or they'll go back to writing a story they're writing, or, they'll chat with their friends, or they'll, whatever, just something a little more, they'll make a video, they'll make a movie, something, take some photos, play a game. And eventually they use the technology. I want them to feel like it's like part of their life. I don't want them to feel like, oh, I'm doing something special. It's not, it's, to me, technology now is all blurred, right? It's all together. So that's how I see it. But, you got to pull them up every now and then a little bit like, hey guys, we watch a lot of YouTube today, but I don't ban it, and I'm not watching them. I'm going to just say, hey guys, it's probably a good idea if the language is very strong. Is that appropriate or inappropriate? Um, can we, let's just be careful. And also, the other word language I use is, can you take care of yourself? I want you to take care of yourself and make sure, if someone asks you to do something, you don't have to do anything anyone says. Just think of for yourself if that's appropriate or inappropriate. And I don't get into too much detail, but just to set a high level boundary, because weird things happen on the internet, right?
Yeah.
But they're pretty good. They're pretty good. They'll flag and say, Dad, this video is a little bit, it says some words. And the other thing with swear words, my view on that is I actually think they're part of the English language, and using them correctly and in key moments in time. Like, I will very frequently use them, but when I do use them, then I'm in very extreme context. They'll pull me up and say, Dad, you just said that word. And I said, yes, but I meant that word and everything that encompassed with that word in that moment. And they were like, okay, I see. Because it's a very strong punctuation, right? But you need, I believe if you limit yourself with the lexicon of words that you can use, it inhibits your ability to communicate. And if you can't use those words and punctuation points, particularly in business, then people don't really know exactly how you feel. You're not using the full spectrum of the English language. And the English language, unfortunately, is quite a not a dense language. It's actually lacking a lot of words, I think, personally.
It is quite basic.
And we
I think
still,
fuck adds a lot to it.
yeah,
I think it does. And
the critical
you're right.
word.
It's a punctuation point. And there's been many research studies to prove that people who swear have a higher intelligence. People who have better memory. Actually, no, people who forget have a higher intelligence. That's right. But fuck, mate, it's all good here. But listen, you mentioned when we first sat down, you said you've got a new startup that you're kicking off in the background there. And I was going to ask the question anyway, like, what's next for Fred? I know you're deep into Finder and all its new iterations, but is there something new on the cooker that you're thinking about playing with, mate?
Yeah, I'm looking at this e-commerce space right now. I find it fascinating. It's not something I've built some online stores before because of the website business, but I'm kicking around this idea, of taking. It could Finder be a place to take payments, like, and actually allow people to buy and sell things? It's like very possible. I understand how
Mm.
shopping carts work, and I know how to take payments and things like that. But I'm like, what is what is the feasibility of this? And we're just experimenting with it right now. And we've tried a few things. Um, Although it's a wander right now. Let's put it that way. We're
Mhm.
wandering, and we're trying to figure this out, and we're not sure where it will land and how it will look. And the last venture we did, which is still going, is the Finder app. The Finder app is doing really, really well. People are downloading that, and you connect your bank account up, and it auto compares for you, which is awesome.
Wow.
So it tells you if you can save some money on your or your different. There's 4 services right now it auto compares with, which is really cool.
Wow.
And I thought that was a great, that's cool, right? And so maybe if I can contextualize that, this might is I've been experimenting a lot with media in the past, and now I'm experimenting with technology. If that makes sense. So,
Yep.
so,
Makes
so and
total
that
sense.
sounds weird, right? But actually, Finder really didn't build a lot of technology. It had a website, it's a website business, but technology is very different,
Yep.
and building products and services. So, um, yeah, I'd say I'm experimenting and playing around a lot more with that now, as opposed to yeah, just media and marketing, really, and combining
Okay.
those two things together.
Yeah. Right. And in terms of the social space, like, do you guys see anything happening there that is going to be different to what we've seen in the past?
In terms of social media, um,
Yeah, like I'm curious for people's perspective on the moment for social, because obviously we're seeing
mm,
a lot of innovation iterations in technology. We're seeing a lot of people now home in front of their computer, a lot more time spent on social networks. We've noticed, for an example, a drop in ad costs and conversion costs in our ads in our audiences in the US. So I'm curious from your perspective if you see any opportunity that's popping up from a business perspective in the social environment at this point, because there is a much more of a captive audience.
yeah, I think it's interesting. Although people are, yeah, they're going on more on these social media channels. I think they were using it, just using it a little bit more right now. I just think there's this trend away from big social grouping places
Mm.
to more niche places.
Yep.
Um, so I spend more time. I left Facebook in 2012. I closed my profile. That's 8 years not on Facebook, and I didn't even know what's happened there, because I just thought, I don't think this is good for my life, so I left. I kind of use Instagram, not really. I don't really get it. I use LinkedIn a lot, so I really love LinkedIn. Is for business, and it speaks to me as a social place. But I think we do a lot of business with our clients through WhatsApp. So I set up a cryptocurrency brokerage 2 years ago called Hivex, and we trade all our with all our clients through WhatsApp. Millions of dollars of cryptocurrency. Um, and I think the trend that I see is chat commerce. So
Yes. 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 I could not agree more. More of a focus on community management, more of a focus on chat. Yeah. Starting those conversations in the digital format and then transition them to other modalities.
yeah, 100%. And I'm long on that. That's
Yeah, me
where
too.
yeah, and I think WhatsApp groups. I love WhatsApp groups. They allow that little micro communities, and then you can have bigger ones, but they splinter off and they come back together and they form. I think it's beautiful. I just I can't participate in them as much because I find them a bit noisy after a while, and then
Yeah.
I leave. And I think that's the fluvial nature. I do think I love transacting through chat. I find it so much faster and easier. I find email cumbersome. I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
send an email. People ask me to send an email. I'm like I open the email. I'm like we're already talking. We're like we're here together in a digital form. Let's just do the transaction here and now. It's written. It's printed right now. We can just close the deal. Everyone can. I'll buy it from you right now. Just I'm not going to like. Can we just do it? We're done. And there's an email confirmation maybe, because that's what we remember, like a fax. We used to send faxes and things. People used to do telephone deals and stuff.
I get what you're saying. There's more friction in email than there is in messaging, and I think that's where it's so attractive.
100%. And I think that's where it's moving.
I couldn't agree more. Fred, mate, I have to say, I hope this is the first of many conversations to come. I really enjoyed getting to know you, my friend. And I'd like to follow up with more conversations in the future. If there's one piece of advice that's either the best piece of advice that you've received or the best piece of advice you could give, what would that be, mate?
I think when you imagine yourself and who you are, I think if you can be humble enough to say to yourself and look back and draw a line in the sand and all the past things that happened and all the things that you've ever experienced and all the challenge you've gone through to get to where you are, draw a line in the sand and look back now and say, that was good. And now imagine what is great. Write those things down. Put them in your top drawer and go and do them. And I reckon in about 5 years' time, you'll feel pretty good about yourself.
What a fucking great way to finish, Fred. Absolutely incredible. Now, I know you're not on social media stuff. People want to find out more about you, my friend. Where can they go to find out about you?
Oh, you can follow me on Instagram. I post there. I do try and as best I can. I'm not great at it. LinkedIn. Come on and check me out on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Fred Schebesta. And Instagram, I post photos of, I don't know, I have thoughts every now and then, and I try to be inspirational because I think that's what I'm kind of okay at. And hopefully people get a bit of a bump from that.
Fantastic. We'll put the links below. But, mate, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you taking the time. And, mate, I can't wait to see where you guys go from here.
Thanks, Kerwin, man. Great questions. And don't forget, everyone, you just listen to the best podcast. It's the place to subscribe. So Kerwin's crushing it here. This is where it's at.
We got it. Thank you so much, Fred. I look forward to connecting again soon. Thank you, brother.
That was awesome. Thank you.
This episode was brought to you by Nail It and Scale It, the world's leading fast growth program for business. There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Ray. And please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you get to see all of these interviews in the flesh. Share this podcast with your friends and drop me a review on iTunes. I would love to hear what you guys think, and also let you know your comments help make sure that we keep producing killer content just like this. And if you'd like to stay up to date with all of my movements, upcoming podcasts, events, and much more, please jump onto the website kerwinray.com and also check us out on all social media on the handle @KerwinRay. Thanks for joining us.